Meeting of February 11th to order, and if you will all join us when we do salute to the flag. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Larson?
Yes.
Councilmember Ariano?
Yes.
Councilmember Nasrati?
Yes.
Councilmember Esquer?
Here.
Mayor Bublak?
Here, we are all present and counted for. Declaration of conflicts of interest.
Oh, I have one.
Yes.
I have a sibling on the appointments, and so I will be abstaining from.
Item D, 3D.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you. Any others? Hearing and seeing none, we will continue through with the closed session is going to be at the end. Approval of agenda as posted or amended.
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a
Second.
second. Quick call the roll, please.
Approving the agenda as posted, Councilmember Larson?
Yes.
Councilmember Ariano?
Yes.
Councilmember Nasrati?
Yes.
Councilmember Esquer?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, passes 5-0. And now on to recognitions. We have an Employee of the Year. If I could have Hans Visser come up here, please. How are you?
Fine,
Thank you. You're ready for this big speech, I heard.
Oh, man.
All right?
Make me nervous.
Oh, come on, you got this. Okay, so let me tell you about Hans. Hans has been with us for 49 years of employment with the city of Turlock. On November 1st of 2019, 49 years, he was hired under the Public Employment Program that helped put veterans to work. Hans served 2 years in the United States Army. He started in maintenance and has been working in maintenance since. Whether it has been in parks, helping out with streets, or one of his primary duties, taking care of all spraying, you can see Hans helping out anywhere from parks to street islands. Hans has always had a get-her-done attitude. He is very friendly and easy to get along with, and overall, a great guy to have in the department. He always stays busy and does a lot for the department and helps out in various areas. He is always on top of all the latest laws and regulations when it comes to the pesticide programs. Oof. And he helps keeping others in the department educated. Hans goes to the extra mile to help fellow employees to achieve their goals. Hans has been married since 1974 and has one son. He and his wife enjoy thrift store shopping and taking advantage of the movie program at the local library. And we have a library present here for you, I believe. They have movie nights. Hans likes to tinker and work on his car, and he has a 1967 Ford Mustang. Awesome, my favorite. I give you the Employee of the Year, Hans Visser.
Thank the council, and the mayor, and my bosses here, Raymond Garcia, Allison Von Gelder, and all the employees that voted for me and stuff. I want to thank you.
Any family here?
No.
Oh,
They're all.
all right. They're watching, right? They'll get this on video. But we have all this for you, and it's not nearly enough for all you've done for us. Thank you from all of us.
Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate it. Thank you. One more hand for Hans. All right, now we have Employee of the Month, Julie Miranda. There you go. Okay. This is Julie Miranda, who was named the City of Turlock's Employee of the Month for January of 2020. Julie was nominated for her positive attitude, demeanor, and her willingness to go the extra mile for her coworkers. She is always upbeat and professional when dealing with both employees and the public. Her expertise not only benefits the fire department, but the entire city. Simply stated, she keeps fire administration on time and on task. Julie received a bachelor's degree from Ashford University in 2014. She was hired in February of 2016 as a staff services assistant in neighborhood services. Her talents were quickly recognized by the fire chief, who then hired her as his executive assistant in August of 2016. Julie is married to Paul, her husband of 24 years, and they have 5 daughters, Samantha, Savannah, Jessie, and twins Lily and Nikki, and one son, Hunter. They also have one granddaughter, Joy. In her spare time, she enjoys family trips to the coast or foothills, attending volleyball and softball tournaments, and with her daughters and various activities with her friends. I give to you January 2020 Employee of the Month, and this is Julie Miranda.
Thank you very much for this, Council, City of Turlock, and Committee. It's an honor truly, but I have to share this with my coworkers as well, because without them I wouldn't be here. And it is an honor to work for the fire department, so really it's truly an honor just to be up here to represent them. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Now, where's Katie at? Katie, you're sitting behind there. Katie's going to do the next proclamation. It's right here, and you're probably good right here, huh?
Yep, yeah. So, good evening, or maybe I will go. If I can invite our engineers to join me as well. It's an honor to get to read tonight's proclamation to recognize National Engineers Week. So, whereas National Engineers Week was officially recognized in 1951 by the National Society of Professional Engineers to raise public awareness of engineers' positive contributions to the quality of life, and whereas National Engineers Week is celebrated in February in conjunction with George Washington's birthday, as President Washington is considered the nation's first engineer, and whereas engineers use their scientific and technical knowledge and skills in creative and innovative ways to fulfill society's needs, and whereas engineers face the major technological challenges of our time, from rebuilding towns devastated by natural disaster, cleaning up the environment, assuring safe, clean, and efficient sources of energy, to designing safe, efficient, and intelligent public transportation facilities that will speed our society into the future. And whereas engineers are encouraging our young math and science students to realize the practical power of their knowledge, and whereas engineers work in concert with public safety personnel and are critical to the mitigation and resolution of natural and man-made disasters, and whereas society will look more than ever to engineers and their knowledge and skills to meet the challenges of the 21st century, and whereas the effectiveness of the qualified and dedicated personnel who serve in the engineering profession can be enhanced by increasing our community's understanding of the importance of the work they perform. Now, therefore, the Mayor and Council do hereby proclaim February 16th through the 22nd, 2020 as National Engineers Week. And they call upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contributions engineers make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. So I present you our City of Turlock engineering staff. Proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. We appreciate the recognition. Engineers in general are pretty happy to stay underneath the radar. If things are working well, we prefer not to be in the spotlight, but we are very appreciative of this recognition tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Nice job, Ms. Quintero. All right, on to appointments. We're gonna, he's giving you that sign, like hit the road or something. Okay, for appointments, I recommend that the members of the city staff and the community members be appointed to the various boards and commissions as outlined in the report found within the agenda packet. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
A motion and a second. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Appointing members of city staff and community members to the City County Disaster Council, East Stanislaus Regional Water Management Partnership, Stanislaus County Local Task Force on Solid Waste, Stanislaus County Regional Solid Waste Planning Agency, Regional Agency, and Turlock Mosquito Abatement District. Councilmember Larson?
Yes.
Councilmember Nisrati?
Yes.
Councilmember Esquer?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, it passes 4 with 1 abstention, and thank you for that. All of you are watching, thank you for putting your names up there, and staff, you didn't have a choice. On to public participation, we have a few cards here. We will start with Pamela Youngdale. Got that Youngdale thing going on today.
Hello, Mayor and council members and staff and community members. We're here to share some good news that involves a friendly golden retriever who will soon be coming to live and work in our community of Turlock at no cost to the city. The only paycheck our newest citizen will require is a gentle hug or a tender nuzzle. I'm Pam Youngdale, and I'm here with some of my ministry team members from Good Shepherd Lutheran Church. We are a future affiliate of Lutheran Church Charities in the process of acquiring a canine comfort dog. The canine comfort dog ministry dogs are a bridge for compassionate ministry. They open doors for their canine handlers to have conversations involving faith and to pray with individuals as desired. And they're good listeners. Along with serving in the communities in which they are placed, these comfort dogs are deployed in times of disaster and crisis to bring comfort to those affected, including first responders and those who serve with them. The comfort dogs and their handlers are good listeners, non-judgmental, and they keep secrets. Many people will talk to a comfort dog before talking to people. It helps them process the stress or grief that they are experiencing. At Good Shepherd, we will have a team of 8 to 10 trained handlers present and ready to offer compassion and prayer in our community and beyond. I want to communicate that these ministry dogs are purebred golden retrievers and are working dogs that receive over 2,000 hours of training at ministry headquarters in Northbrook, Illinois. They are certified through Lutheran Church Charities and the American Kennel Club. Daily training is ongoing with their handlers after placement. Currently, there are only 3 of these LCC canine comfort dogs in the entire state of California. Napa, Yuba City, and most recently Elk Grove. To have a dog placed in Turlock is kind of a big deal, and especially in a national ministry of over 130 dogs in 25 states. Finally, we never charge for those we serve, and we only go where we are invited. We hope that you are blessed by this good news, and we look forward to the day when we can introduce you to our comfort dog here at City Hall. We'd gladly accept that invitation. Thank you for the time. And I'll have brochures in the back.
Great.
For anybody that wants to pick one up before they leave. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Diane Bartlett.
Good evening. My name's Diane Bartlett, and I'm the supervising librarian at the Turlock Public Library. So, after many years of talking and planning, it's finally happening. The Turlock Library is finally being renovated. The project will renovate the existing library and expand it. We will grow from 10,000 square feet to approximately 16,500 square feet. And among the new features of the building include a community room for library programs and public meetings, expanded children's library with an adjacent garden, and improved teen area, quiet rooms, study rooms, and more. We would like the public to know that the Board of Supervisors is hosting a family-friendly groundbreaking event on Saturday, February 22nd at 11 a.m. And I know, of course, some of you will be there, and we're looking forward to that. Thank you for your support. And also, pending Board of Supervisors approval, the Turlock Library will close for renovation on March 16th, 2020. The last day of operation would be March 14th, and we expect to be closed for 9 months to a year. But during the temporary closure, the book drops will be available for folks to return their materials. Also, thank you to the city. We are working with you to have a pop-up library at the Senior Center, and we expect that's going to be coming before you in the next few weeks. Thank you so much for your willingness to work with us and work that out. The pop-up would be available for customers to place and pick up holds, and we also are offering story time for babies, toddlers, and preschoolers. And as a reminder, your Turlock Library card will work at all 13 Stanislaus County libraries, including nearby libraries such as in Denair, Keys, Houston, and Ceres. But meanwhile, up until then, we are continuing with our regular programming, story times on Wednesdays and Thursdays, children's programs every Tuesday at 4 o'clock. At 1 o'clock the next 2 Wednesdays, we have our art programs for adults. And I have 3 more opportunities for teens to get their community service credit. February 12th at 4, March 11th at 4, and Saturday, March 7th at 3. And finally, we'll be closed this coming Monday, February 17th, for the President's Day holiday. Thanks for allowing me time to get the information out.
You bet. Thank you. Merle Bowling?
Mayor, City Council, Department Heads, citizens of Turlock. My name is Merle Bowling. I live at West Fork Estates, 500 North Tully, Space 46. I've been there 2.5 years. We moved in from Hillmar. We really like the town of Turlock, but we have a problem right across the street from us, a half a block. That's a homeless encampment. It's been there since we moved in, 2.5 years. It's getting worse, and there's some problems there. It's approximately 1/8 of a mile long, 15 to 20 yards wide, and it's filled with garbage, trash, approximately 1 to 2 feet deep. It is rotting, decaying, and decomposing. There is also a problem with human waste. And in preparation tonight, I've been over there twice within the last month. There's a chair set up as a toilet with a 5-gallon bucket. When that is full, I don't know what they do with it, but there's other buckets around. That's a major environmental problem in my belief. Also, there are rats coming out, and also mosquitoes are starting to fly since it's warming up. In my backyard at 500 North Tully, I was out there last week, and there was mosquitoes already. And I thought a little bit early for them, where could they be coming from? So I called the mosquito abatement, the local one, and very interesting conversation. Everybody's been very helpful. The mosquitoes are coming out as it warms up. Their range, they're hungry, is a 1 to 10 miles. And that, between the rats and the mosquitoes, I shouldn't have to explain what kind of diseases, plagues, whatever is involved there. And I had called, as many others in the park, and it seems like everybody else kind of bailed out, so I'm the only one tonight. But everybody has called. I called, got a wonderful response, got 2 phone calls back. Nothing was done. But the biggest fact I've found out that during my fact-finding is nobody really doing anything about this. We want it cleaned up. Nobody seems to handle this. They blame it on Caltrans, and I'm sure that's their responsibility too, and I'm sure you've heard it before. I don't know how a city would get attention. I'm suggesting maybe declare a state of emergency. Those are usually for national disasters or something of this nature. If that doesn't work, I don't know what the answer is. But we should not have to live with this in our neighborhood any longer. Thank you.
Mr. Boulding, if you wouldn't mind having an offline conversation with our fire marshal in the back, so at least we can have somebody, a point of contact for you tonight.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Treeweller.
Mayor, council, city staff, and fellow Turlock citizens, Milt Treeweiler. I believe we're witnessing a very sad time in the city of Turlock. Our city has always been based on principle. In the last year or so, we're becoming a city based on money. Here in the United States, the words to our Pledge of Allegiance have changed to one nation, under money, with liberty and justice for the privileged people only. We're unique here in Turlock. We're not Modesto, we're not Patterson. That's what makes us so special. We're Turlock, California. The United States' attitude of live for today and don't worry about tomorrow is catching up with us. People are trying to live a lifestyle that's not sustainable today. And all people are beginning to pay the price for this. The majority of people in the U.S. are stressed and not happy. Greed and desire are not solving our nation's problems. Unless we make good decisions today, our descendants will suffer for the mistakes we make. Everything we do today is based on growth, which is not sustainable. We are physical beings living on a finite planet. The laws of physics tell us that growth has an expiration date. We need to be very conscious of this as you make decisions for the city of Turlock's future. The laws of physics don't care how much money you have, what your religious beliefs are, or what political party you belong to. We don't want Turlock to become one city under money with liberty and justice for the privileged people only. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them or meet with you at another time and talk about them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who did not fill out a blue card for public speaking that wishes to speak? If not, I will close the public hearing and move the item 5, motion waiving reading ordinances on the agenda except by title. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Larson?
Yes.
Councilmember Ariano?
Yes.
Councilmember Nisrati?
Yes.
Councilmember Esquer?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, it passes 5-0. Thank you. Consent calendar, are there any items to be pulled, or is there a motion to accept as present?
Move to accept as presented.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Adopting the consent calendar, Councilmember Larson?
Yes.
Councilmember Ariano?
Yes.
Councilmember Nisrati?
Yes.
Councilmember Esquer?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, passes 5-0. Final readings. We have an ordinance amending the Turlock Municipal Code regarding cannabis use in the West Side Industrial Specific Plan. Do I need to open it to the public, Mr. White? Yes. Okay, I will open this to the public before our final vote. Anyone wishing to speak in regard to the Firehouse Specific Plan, I'm sorry, just to the West Side Industrial Specific Plan for this? If not, I will close the public hearing. Okay, and bring it back to council.
I'll move to approve.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Amending the Turlock Municipal Code, Title 9, Chapter 2, Article 7, Section 3, regarding cannabis uses. Amending Title 9, Chapter 2, Article 7, Section 5, regarding permitted uses in the West Side Industrial Specific Plan. And amending Title 9, Chapter 3, Article 3, regarding commercial use classifications, as introduced at the January 28, 2020 City Council meeting. Councilmember Larson?
Yes.
Councilmember Ariano?
Yes.
Councilmember Nisrati?
Yes.
Councilmember Esquer?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
No, it passes 4-1. Public hearings. Item A, request to implement the City of Turlock's last, best, and final offer to the Turlock Associated Police Officers. Mr. Kevindale. Wherever you feel most comfortable. Probably over here would be best.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council and staff. My name's Kevin Dale, and I serve as the city's labor negotiator. And I'm here before you this evening with regard to items related to the 2019 to 2020 fiscal year labor negotiations. As you know, the city engaged in labor negotiations with each of its unions and employee groups, and during that process, we reached tentative agreements with 4 of the groups. But the council and the city did go to impasse with 2 of the groups. And item 8A is with regard to the Turlock Associated Police Officers. Basically, during this process, the parties were unable to reach agreement, most notably related to the city's proposal to change the healthcare design, and as well as the proposal to reduce the amounts that the city contributes to employees who do not participate in our healthcare program and receive deferred compensation in lieu amounts. Following a series of labor negotiating meetings, basically what happens is once you've completed a sufficient number of negotiations and it's apparent that further meetings are futile, the parties then are determined to be at impasse. And at that point, you're at a process where the Myers-Mills-Brown Act sets forth different statutory procedures. And at this point, that process has completely been exhausted. And so now what comes before the council is the opportunity for the city council to implement the city's last best and final offer. With regard to TAPO, there is an attachment A to the resolution that's before the city council that sets forth the terms of the city's last best and final offer. And just to briefly summarize what those terms are, a major term is the proposal to redesign the city's healthcare plan and to bring it more in line with today's current system to make sure that our employees have wellness benefits, et cetera. Along with that change, there would be some deductibles and out-of-pocket amounts that would apply to our employees. However, the city, through the negotiation process and in its last best and final offer, did agree to continue paying 100% of the premium for the employees and the families. So that's design plan change number 1. That's the big one. The other one that's on the second page of the last best and final offer is where the city is proposing to reduce the deferred compensation in lieu amounts from the current amount, which is right around $952, basically to half of that, so that employees who do not participate in health and welfare through the city would receive $475 per month into their deferred compensation plan. There are some other language, non-economic type items that are primarily operational. They are found in the last best and final offer. Just some examples of what they are, and they are before you is, and as you may recall, they're basically with regard to scheduling things with the Stanislaus County Fair or traffic officer schedules being flexed during Christmas parade, 4th of July. There's some callback language. Basically just some cleanup in the MOU regarding special assignment definitions, et cetera. So those, in my opinion, those really weren't the controversial items. It was mainly with regard to the healthcare design plan change and with regard to the deferred compensation in lieu amounts. So at this point, the city, as I mentioned, may proceed with adopting the resolution that would then implement the terms of that last best and final offer.
Questions for Mr. Dale? Okay, I will open it to the public. I have one card here. David Garcia.
Good evening. My name is Dave Garcia, and I'm here on behalf of the Turlock Associated Police Officers. With all due respect, you get a partial story from Mr. Dale, because historically we go back 6 years to figure out how we got here. And 6 years ago, my members, hardworking men and women of this department, were approached by then City Manager Gary Hampton. And Gary said, we are paying the most for healthcare cost of all the comparable cities in our salary survey. What can we do? Well, we can put our heads together. If the association is reasonable, look for a lower cost plan. But if you guys do that, in return, the savings on the healthcare will go back to salaries. It was a win-win because the city would then not have issues with recruitment and retention that would hopefully engender applicants to remain applying here with Turlock and our employees to stay here with the department instead of fleeing to the Bay Area with higher wages. In good faith, my members did agree to the healthcare, the collaborative healthcare bargaining provisions. They kept working, looking for a lower cost healthcare plan, and ultimately that was achieved. They obtained a new design plan that is going to save the city money. So this package deal, as I call it, we have this plan, it's going to save money. Well, put that money back into salaries for our officers. And what happens? In essence, after the association agreed to this package collaborative healthcare bargaining provision, the city pulls back. And now I'm told that the city council wishes to eliminate that provision while keeping the savings. That's tantamount to bad faith bargaining. It's an unfair labor practice. The men and women of my organization came forward in good faith, sat down, rolled their sleeves up, helped with the city's issue, and now we feel like the rug is being pulled out from under us. That's unfair. If the members of my organization can't trust the city council, how can our citizens of this city trust the city council? What else will you change or flop on? I'm asking for your help here tonight. We have some issue. I would say pull this matter from the calendar. Direct the parties back to the table, and by the next council meeting, look for a resolution. We can leave this matter in the hands of Mr. Dale and the labor representative from Goyer and Associates to look for some type of resolution. We're asking for some time and that you pull this matter. That's fair, and it basically rewards my members who over the last 6 years were open to trying to help the city out. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to this item? Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see Mr. Puffer.
Hi, Bob Puffer, Turlock, California. It seems to me that there's a new labor negotiation that starts in July. I think the current contract that hasn't even been ratified expires at that time. At this time, I don't think there is any more time to wait. I think a decision needs to be made tonight so things can get closed up, and then they have 4 months to get ready for the next round of negotiations. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak regarding the TAPO? Okay, I will close the public hearing, bring it back to my colleagues. What is the will of council? Comments? Sure, comments or?
I figured you would, so. No comments. I'm going to move to approve the resolution as is.
We have a motion
Seconded.
and a second. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Larson?
Yes.
Councilmember Ariano?
Yes.
Councilmember Nazrati?
Yes.
Councilmember Esquer?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, it passes 5-0. Item B, request to implement the City of Turlock's last best and final offer to the Turlock firefighters, Local 2434. Mr. Dale.
Good evening once again, Mayor, members of the council, and staff. With regard to item 8B, it is substantially similar in format and procedure with regard to 8A. This is with regard to the labor negotiations that occurred between the City of Turlock and the firefighter bargaining unit. Similar to the other unit, the parties were unable to reach agreement with regard to the negotiation. Once again, primarily the issue is with regard to the healthcare design plan change, as well as the deferred compensation in lieu amounts. So we did, at some point in the process, we did reach an impasse, and before you is a resolution, and attachment A to that resolution has the last best and final offer that the city provided to the Turlock firefighters at the bargaining table. As you'll see, it's identical with regard to the insurance issue and with regard to the deferred comp issue. There are language issues that are operational in nature that you'll find, and in fact, In an effort to reach agreement over the non-operation, or the operational type items, the parties did in fact sign a little side partial agreement. And you'll see that in that language that has been vetted through the department, we're proposing to just put in language that the group was interested in, as well as the department, that has language on cleanup on pay for performance, on fitness incentive pay, with regard to how uniform allowance is characterized under the CalPERS rules, the city's obligation to continue to repair and replace wildland clothing, seniority, how seniority is considered within the department, et cetera. So there are operational issues on top of the primary issues which related to the healthcare and the deferred compensation in lieu amounts. So before you this evening is a resolution that would implement the city's last best and final offer with regard to the firefighter unit.
Questions for Mr. Dale? Okay, I will open it to the public. I have one card. Mr. Bickle, it says here written statement. I don't see one, so I guess you're speaking. Okay, good. I was looking for it.
David Bickle, Turlock Firefighters, Local 2434, Mayor Bublak, members of council. I'm here to address the matter before you on imposing contract language of the Turlock Firefighters Local 2434. I believe it's important to know some history of how the Local 2434 has assisted the city in the past with the negotiations in difficult financial times. For that, we start in 2007. 2007, firefighters received an increase of 7%. 2008, recession starts and firefighters agree to a 5% reduction in pay. 2009, firefighters continue with a 5% reduction and additionally giving back 2% for retiree health. The union also pays $48,000 of its own money to 2 top members to retire them out and save 3 lower firefighter positions. 2010, we continue with a 5% and 2%. 2011, firefighters pay their own 9% retirement contribution. Previously negotiated benefit by the city. The city does find a 1-year increase of 4 and gives back 4.5%. 2012 through 2014, firefighters pay their own 9% retirement contribution. In 2015, firefighters continue to pay their own 9% contribution and receive a 3% negotiated stipend. 16, same 9%, a 6% stipend. 17, same 9%, a 9% stipend. In 17, the city performs a total comprehensive compensation study for the entire city. The fire department is found to be 25% below minimum median wage of comparison cities. In 18, firefighters continue to pay their 9% contribution, but receive a 9% increase. This amounts to even money. The firefighters continue to pay their retirement. At this point, firefighters are finally making what they made in 2007. Firefighters negotiate a 3.5% increase, giving away a retirement benefit. 2019, firefighters receive a 4% COLA. What's this total? Starting in 2008 and lasting for 10 years, firefighters had no pay raise and actually gave up benefits costing individuals money to assist the city during difficult financial years. Firefighters have only received a 7% pay raise in the last 2 years. That's 7% over 12 years, equaling only only 6 1/1000ths of a percent. That's a dot with 2 zeros and a 6. In 2020, the Social Security Department gave a COLA of 1.9% on imposing last best and final offer. The union has offered to work with the city on negotiations pertaining specifically to health care costs. The city has refused offers for employees to pay part of their own health care. The city only wanted the plan they offered. The plan offered by the city will burden the employee with up to $5,000 out-of-pocket expense. This equates to a 7 to 9% reduction of money the employee takes home. Essentially, the city is asking firefighters to do the same job with less pay. The total comprehensive study from 2017 shows the average firefighter. In closing, I have outlined how over the last 12 years, the union has worked with the city during difficult financial times and received very little in return. I request that you do not impose this contract, further reducing pay firefighters receive. I have an outline of the timeline. If you'd like it, I could give it to the clerk.
Please. Anyone else wishing to speak regarding this? Okay, I will close the public hearing, bring it back for comment, or what is the will of council?
Move to implement.
Have a motion?
Second.
And a second. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Larson?
Yes.
Councilmember Ariano?
Yes.
Councilmember Nisrati?
Yes.
Councilmember Esquer?
Yes.
Mayor Bublak?
Yes, it passes 5-0. Number 9, action items, there are none. City manager's report. Item A is an oral on written finance update. Mr. Cook?
Yes, Mayor Mubak, members of the council, ask our finance director, Tina Envia, to provide you a overview of last year's fiscal year closeout, how we're doing this fiscal year, and how we plan to tackle next fiscal year as we move together, putting together our next budget. So over to Ms. Envia.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, city staff, and the public. I am happy to be here tonight to kind of give you an update of what's been going on in finance. I know it's been a few months since we've been before you. We brought you the audit back in October, and that was the audit for 2018. So I just wanted to give everybody an update on what's going on with fiscal 2019, and then also looking ahead to fiscal 2020, the year we're in right now. Overview here of what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to go over the audit, where the projections are coming in for 2019. I'll look at the mid-year budget calendar, kind of how things will be presented before you and the timeline for that, and then also take a look at where we are for the 2021 budget cycle and how this fiscal year is looking as far as the numbers for 2020. I also provided a little bit of information about sales tax. That's a big component of our general fund revenue. So just wanted to look at how we're doing compared to prior years and trying to look ahead on how that's going to look for the city. I also have some information in my presentation about PERS, just looking at the rates that we're paying, what our unfunded liabilities are, and looking ahead to the future on that also, kind of see how that looks for us. And then a slide or two on health insurance costs, just covering what the city has been spending, how much that equates to per covered employee, and information like that. So getting right into the audit, we've had auditors here since the end of January, or actually the third week of January. They've been out here almost 3 weeks now doing their work. They've been keeping finance staff very busy. Both Gloria, Nadine, and myself have been working very hard to get them everything when it's asked for. I feel the audit is going well. It's maybe a little later in the year than I personally would like it, but we can't work on that right now. Right now, we just are trying to get it done and get that report out for fiscal 19. I am hopeful. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't have anything to you, hopefully by the end of March, beginning of April, with the final report from the auditors on that. We're just down to really a short list of open items with them. So that is going along pretty well, keeping us busy. Now, taking a look at the finances, we'll first take an overview look. I think you saw this slide when I brought you the audit. So I've just added on where we expect to be for 2019 and how the 2020 budget is looking. The top two lines up there you can see are revenues and expenses. The darker green is the expenses and the lighter green are the revenues. So you can see we've had a little bit of a gap between 18-19 where our expenses were above our revenues. On the budget side, we've been able to bring that back down. As of right now, I don't see any reason to anticipate that that's not going to happen. So we're hopeful as we're closing 19 and looking ahead that everything is going to come in as projected. Down the red and orange lines, whoa, that got loud, represent the fund balance. The orange one is the unassigned fund balance, so that's the one that everybody is used to hearing about. That's the general fund reserve. And then the bright red, or the darker red, is the total. I have a slide where I'm going to detail out the components of that, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. I didn't expect those to change differently. You can see they run side by side on the graph there. this next chart full of numbers here. This is a summary of 2019. The middle column represents the numbers as we see them right now. And like I said, the auditors have been here for 3 weeks. We haven't really had any adjustments that were unexpected, so we're hopeful that these numbers will not change, barring any unforeseen adjustments that they may come up with. The first column represents the 2019 budget, and then I have the difference over to the right. So the net, I'm going to jump down to the bottom really quick. The bottom column in the middle, you can see that we're anticipating a loss of $839,000. We had budgeted a use of general fund reserve of $3,123,000. So quite an improvement, but I wanted to kind of show you how that improvement fell out, and you can see that by looking at the changes in the third column where you have the differences between the budget and the actual. So revenues came in just a little bit over, 1.2 million over. Percentage-wise, it's not a big number, but it was enough to really help kind of bring that number up at the bottom, reduce that use of reserves. The categorical expenses, you can see pretty much down the list. Every department has come in slightly under, anywhere from about 12 or 24% to just under 1%. So every department, you can tell, has really made an effort here to keep those numbers really, really tight. The one exception that kind of stands out, and I really want to point it out, I had a handout that explained it. When you look at the fire budget, it's not really representative of them being over budget in the sense that when they have overtime for FEMA and other emergency services, those monies are reimbursed. So included in that difference in the revenues is $389,000 of that revenue, and then the expenses that are over are representative of that overtime. So I just wanted to point that out because it was somewhat inconsistent with what you saw along with the rest of the departments in the general fund. So ending the year, we're expecting the total fund balance to come in at just over $10 million. And on the next slide, I'm going to kind of detail out what is included in that. And here I'm comparing it to how it was presented in the financial statements for 2018. So you can see there are 4 categories of fund balance. The first one is non-spendable. This represents at the end of the year what you may have in prepaids or other things that you can't allocate to anything else. Committed are funds that are designated by the city council or management for special uses, often tied to a certain revenue stream or so forth. In those 2 categories, we have the Special Public Safety Fund and the Tourism Fund. The last 2, the assigned and unassigned, represent kind of what's left over, I guess you could say. The assigned balance, the $2,600,000, is representative of what we estimate as compensated absences, and that represents an accounting estimate of everybody's accrued vacation, sick leave, etc. So accounting rules require that we disclose that separately, even though a lot of different things would have to really happen for all of those obligations to be paid, right? Everybody would have to leave or be terminated or something like that. But it is an accounting requirement that we disclose that number and show it as a separate component of the fund balance. So there it is. It's the $2,624,000, leaving us an unassigned balance estimated for 2019 of $6,393,000. So much better than was projected in the original budget. And again, you saw on the previous slide kind of the components that brought us to that point, a little bit over on the revenue and some savings across the board, across the departments in the general fund to bring the expenses under. Next slide. This is, now we're kind of looking ahead to how 2020 is looking. When Finance went through the numbers for where we are at mid-year, we don't really see a lot of big things that have changed. So we weren't in a position to really yet say that we expect it to be any different. So that middle column, the 2020 budget, is the budget that was adopted and represents still just an anticipated use of reserves of that bottom middle number, that $22,000. So as of right now, then we're in February, we don't anticipate this to be much different, but Nadine is working on the mid-year budget presentation, so that'll be coming to you shortly, and we'll refine that number for you and talk a little bit more in detail about how all of these departments are doing at mid-year. So, and I wanted to point out one thing on this slide. You can see we're comparing the budget from 2019, which we know that we came in under, to the budget for 2020, but still, you can see between those two fiscal years, we're still cutting another $2 million in expenditures to try to bring that general fund back to a stable area where we just see revenues and expenses being equal to one another.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yes.
So the 3 million that we see in the, for 2019.
Yes.
We're still, that is, revenue that we were gonna use in lieu of, income coming in from our liabilities from the.
Correct.
Okay.
Let me go back 2 slides real quick.
Now that we are 2.3 or something that we had cut, it's limiting our, we didn't find that money. Because I think that's where, that's not extra money that we just found that we can put back into the budget.
No, that's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. You don't want a deficit in your budget.
No.
So you really need to make that up and continue forward with that. That's where you're going to get these opportunities.
We were using our reserves to balance the budget previously. Now that the departments have done such a good job in cost-cutting measures, we're only down to that.
We're down to the 839 shortfall for 2019.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I went backwards to this slide since you were talking about the 3 million, and I wanted to show the actual again, just as a reminder there.
Thank you.
But yes, the objective in the general fund is to have 0 or a slight increase as you need for types of things that just tend to go up. You always want to have a cushion. Taking a look, what you can expect from finance in the next few months as we get into the next budget cycle. Nadine will be putting together the mid-year budget. She's already sent out requests to departments to get that all together, and we hope to have something to you at the next meeting this month, so pretty soon here. Then we'll shift right into the preparation of the next fiscal year's budget. So in March, we'll begin the process with all of our department meetings, meeting with all of the managers to kind of put the numbers together, work on payroll projections, looking at PERS, insurance, all those things that roll up into payroll. And we hope to have the first general fund budget workshop in April on the 14th, followed by the non-general fund workshop, and then the adoption right at the first meeting in June. So we're planning to stick to that schedule pretty tight. So hopefully you'll be hearing a lot from us in the next couple of months. Looking at sales tax. It's a large portion of our general fund, so I just wanted to take a look at how the receipts were coming in this year. I know we've received some reports from agencies that kind of track our sales tax, and often it's hard to know how that relates directly to dollars to us, but I focus on what we've actually received. So just looking at the first of all, I'm going to do this first, then I'll look at the receipts. It's the next slide. Here I provided for you just a 5-year history of sales tax, so you can get an idea of how much it has or hasn't fluctuated over the past 5 years. Most of these changes are explainable. You can see from 2018 to 2019, we have budgeted a slight decrease in sales tax. That's a trend that we're seeing across a lot of communities, just till we're kind of refining how online sales are handled and different things like that, and just the trends in shopping. So we were conservative, I think, in that estimate, and I don't feel that we're going to be too far off based on what I see happening here on this slide. I included from August to January because what we receive in July actually is for the prior fiscal year, so that first payment in July was still for quarters that were in fiscal 19. So when I noted at the bottom of the bars what quarter it applies to, it means that that is the month where we get the final roll-up for that previous quarter of that calendar year. So in August, you can see the 2019 sales were sales tax collections were just over $1 million. That roll up for the quarter, for the second quarter, so the quarter ended June 30th of 2019, we see a slight drop in what's happening. So again, we did drop our estimate, so I think we're good there. The advance payments in September were slightly above 2019. The October, even. November, we had a spike in the advance that we received. That's anticipating increased sales during the holiday quarter. Unfortunately, that number comes out, or that payment comes out on the 25th of this month. So when we bring you that mid-year budget, we're hopeful we'll really be able to drill into the sales tax just a little bit more and kind of have a feel for how it's really going to end up this year. So not a lot changing here, a few little decreases and then a few spikes. So we're hopeful that our estimate is pretty good. And we will have, like I said, we'll have a better idea of it in the next couple of months as those payments come in. A next topic I wanted to cover is just talk a little bit about PERS and how, what's going on with PERS and how that's going to impact us as a city. First, just to kind of remind everybody how the cost of pension plans are actually played out, and it's really comprised of two things. So you have the normal cost, which is a percentage of payroll. So that's what our employees are paying into, the city's paying into every month. And then you have the other portion, which is called our unfunded liability. This is the estimate that comes out of an actuarial report of how much more our plan needs in assets to be made whole, to have enough to fully fund every retiree going forward. That number is set every year, but it's subject to a lot of factors, so it does change. It's not like a mortgage where you buy your house and it's $300,000, and as you pay it off, that goes down. The unfunded liability for CalPERS is affected by a multitude of different things, interest rates in the marketplace, the demographics of the retirees, of the workers, the investment market, a lot of different things. So it's constantly changing, and we're monitoring that. We get a report every year from CalPERS that determines our amounts, what we pay. We know 2 years out kind of what those estimates are. The next year we have the exact estimate of it, and I have those numbers for you just to kind of go over what's been going on with CalPERS. A couple of things I wanted to point out that have also affected how our unfunded liabilities are growing and also how the rates are changing. We have had, back in, it was a while ago now, I guess it was 10 years, 1999, 2000, they created a lot of some enhanced benefits in the PERS structure. So the retirement age was dropped, the percentage per year was increased. During that time period, CalPERS was it had a situation that's called, it was superfunded, right? So it had more assets than it actually needed. It was funded at about 128%. Times were really, really good then. And I think that was probably the impetus for those changes. I wasn't involved in them, so I can only guess. But these enhanced benefits were pushed through, so that impacted the long-term viability of PERS and also the cost structure of PERS, how it was going to be charging going forward. Then, after that, we had some investment losses. The recession hit, right? And we went from 128% funded to a low in 2009 of 61% funded. So what that means when I say a percent funded, I look at how much a city or the entire entity of PERS would have to pay for all its retirees, and the percent funded represents how much in assets they have for that obligation. So ideally, you want to have 100%. You want to be fully funded. So ever since 1999, 2000, when it started dropping, the recession hit, we dropped, like I said, to a low of 61. Right now, the CalPERS fund is at 71%. Our city's portion is at 67. Now, I say 67, but we have, public safety and we have classic, so they're each a little different, but both of them are right around the mid-60s funded. So just to give you an idea of why we're seeing this increase in PERS and why we're seeing this being such an issue for cities, it's because of those factors. And in addition to that, PERS implemented, they dropped what they expected their rate of return to be, which pushes out those rate changes to the users, which is the cities and the employees who are paying into the program. So a lot of things going on to kind of change how those costs are coming together, and it's pushing them up. Everything is pushing those costs up. So just trying to manage that, I wanted to bring to you exactly what our costs are and how they look so we can get an idea for how we're going to manage that. Here is a slide that shows our miscellaneous plan. This is from our actuarial report that we use for our fiscal 19 audit. We get this report every year, late summer. The report gives us what the rates are going to be for the next fiscal year, an estimate of the next 2 years, and also for the unfunded liabilities. So these rates that you see on here are, the top rate is what we're actually incurring right now, and then the other two are estimates. Generally speaking, I rarely see these change much. Something really unusual would have to happen in the marketplace or with demographics for these to change a lot. So you can see in our miscellaneous plan, our current rate is 10.536%. In 2 years, we expect that to go up to 10.6. So it's relatively small increases, less, not too much change there, which is what we would anticipate because we are at the tail end of PERS dropping in that rate increase that when they went from 7.5 to 7, they were phasing in to the cities how we were going to pay for that. And so we're at the tail end of that, so we expect those to level out. On the unfunded liability side, we're seeing those change about 11% a year going up. Those two should reach a peak and level off as that change from a 30-year amortization to a 20-year comes into play. So right now, these are the numbers that we're seeing. You can see the PEPRA plan, which was created in 2012, and that was a plan that had a little bit less rich of a benefit structure, and its purpose was to try to help mitigate some of these cost increases that PERS was having. So right now, you can see, first of all, the rates are much lower for the PEPRA plan, and there are no unfunded liabilities right now. So that's all good, but again, the employees that came in after 2012 are at a lower benefit structure than those that were employed in PERS prior to that year. So this represents the miscellaneous plans, and then this is a summary of the safety plans. Again, I structured all the information the same. The only thing is I added 2 different columns, police and fire, just so you can kind of see the 2 different programs. But the rate structure, you can see in that first column, 21.9% for the public safety employees, going up to about 23 in 2 years. Again, their retirement system is different than classic miscellaneous employees. They have a earlier retirement age and a higher percentage per year. So again, you're going to see their rate is going to be higher. That kind of equates with the benefit that comes out at the end. Their unfunded liabilities, we see them changing, about 16%, 15%, 16% in 2021 and 16% in 2022. Got some little unfunded liabilities starting to grow on the PEPRA side, but we're hopeful that as the marketplace does good in the next few years, we're hoping for some good returns, and then we can see that leveling off too. So again, just information for you. I know PERS has talked about a lot, and I wanted to try to educate everybody a little bit on where the rates come from and how they're looking.
Can I ask you a question real quick? On the previous slide, so if we have some sort of dip in the markets or, recession, since we're heading into our 12th year, what do we anticipate those?
The unfunded liability will immediately go up. Yes, that will immediately go up, and the rate that we're paying will go up just a little bit slower. But the unfunded liabilities will be immediately hit because they take that return into that actuarial computation of how they figure out how much you're going to owe. And they're basing, PERS right now is basing these reports and actuarials and liabilities on a 7% return. In reality, if you look, I think the last one I saw was like the 20-year average was 6. So 7 is actually generous. Now, it's not generous if you look at what the market is doing right now, what the stock exchange and the markets are doing. They're much higher than that. But again, this is at a point in time where we deal with long windows of time, years.
So this is based on a 20-year average. The unfunded liability, I mean, with the markets increasing or decreasing or, stabilizing, we would have increased payments with those unfunded liabilities if it were to go down.
If the CalPERS fund does not earn 7%, we will see those numbers go up. If the reports come out and they are 7 or better, we should see these numbers to be stable, if that makes sense.
Is that like at the end of the calendar year, or is that at the end of the fiscal year?
At the end of the calendar, yes. And
Okay.
I don't believe, as soon as I get the report from CalPERS on how the fund actually did last fiscal year, that would be something to come and share. I just don't have that information yet.
Okay, thank you.
One last thing as it relates to PERS. Oftentimes the question is posed, well, why doesn't the city just get out of PERS? Sounds so simple. But it's quite costly. And the reason being is to get out of a defined benefit plan, you have to have in your pocketbook or in your account enough money to pay for every single person that has ever participated in your program. So this is the estimate for the different categories of employees that we have, of how much it would cost today if we said we are just going to remove ourselves from the PERS system and do some sort of other plan. So you can take the numbers and do what you want with them. I just wanted to share them because it's often a question that's posed, and a lot of times it comes from private industry, and I understand that. Defined benefit plans are not common anymore other than in government, but that is one of the reasons that a lot of people want to work for governments, is the defined benefit plans versus a defined contribution. So anyhow, this is just a little bit of information I wanted to share, just to food for thought, see if we can save up the money.
Mr. Cook's got a...
So, Mayor, so it's the city manager's update. So first of all, I want to thank Tina for her report, but Tina's kind of bright demeanor, I think, papers over some of the real challenges we have. So thank you for your voice. But just so you know, we last year finished up better than we thought. But the previous city council adopted a budget that was 3.1 million in the red. We had an election, and fiscal sustainability was part of that election. We had 3 new council members and a new mayor that said, we need to dial this back. So starting this time last year, the departments really started watching what they spent and cutting back services accordingly. And that's why you saw on one of the slides that departments underspent their budgets. And I think the general fund finished up at 98% that year instead of 100%. But that came at a significant cost to service. We couldn't provide the same level of service with the same amount of money. And so, yeah, it was great we saved money, but recognize the community and the public, and I commend our department heads and the staff for the sacrifices they've made to make that happen. And then compounding that, to prepare a balanced budget for the current year, we're to make even more significant cuts. And again, levels of service have suffered. And you've heard just from the fire chief last week about the limited response vehicle they have to go to, and police in particular has got rid of a lot of their special programs and services that really help take a bite out of crime. They've had to go. So again, Tina, thank you for your report, but there's more to it. To get to these numbers, a lot of sacrifices have been made and are continue to be made, and we've been living with reduced budgets and limited services for over a year now, not just this current budget year that started July 1st. And then secondly, we still do have some unfunded liabilities from last year. We did get that letter from the county about the documentary transfer tax. There was a glitch in the county's computer system where they were withholding, they're supposed to withhold certain money and keep it to themselves. They're actually sending it all to us, and I've decided that we should pay them back. Obviously, we're disputing that, but it is unfunded liability. And again,
How much was that, roughly?
280,000?
$178,000.
Yeah, there you go, $180,000. So that's out there. And then this is the last thing on PERS. The good thing about PERS, the comment I often get is, PERS is out of control. You don't know what your costs are. Every year it goes up a huge amount. Well, actually, with the reforms they've made, we know on a go-forward basis what our future costs are going to be. And they're growing, but at a much slower rate than they have in the past. You saw the, 0.5% rate and whatever else. So while PERS is always a concern for the public, I feel like cities have got a handle on that. And Turlock in particular, we made some prepayments a couple of years ago on a go-forward basis. I think we can manage that in our budget. And again, these are hard negotiated benefits the employees have worked on over the years and under difficult circumstances. So those are my comments to add to Tina's. I'm sorry, the voice of gloom and doom, but.
So you're saying you don't have a
Tina.
check to cover the amount to get out of PERS?
538 million?
No.
Thanks anyway.
Thank you, Tina.
All right, I had one more brief category to talk about, insurance. I just wanted to take a look at how much our self-insurance has cost us over the years. I've started here with 2013. The low in 2014, where the graph is the lowest point, was 5.8 million, and that's in total for that fiscal year. We peaked out in 2016 at 8.3 million, and we're seeing it right at around the $8 million area for 2019, 2020, 7.7 million for 2019, and estimating for 2020 just over 8 million. That averages about 2,355 per employee. That's kind of an odd number really to share because it doesn't mean a whole lot. You have different family sizes, types, singles, family, kids, whatever. It's hard to really get a number that says it costs this much per person on average, but I thought I would just share that just to give you an idea of where we stand on the self-insurance. And that is the end.
Questions for Tina?
I just want to thank you because I think these slides were very helpful in really breaking down the categories that we have to deal with on a regular basis, and that the city manager, is really tracking our expenses, and that our staff has done a really good job of cutting back and making sure that, we can move forward productively and quit being so reactive and maybe be more proactive. And we do have some unfunded liabilities, like you said, that we need to mitigate before we can have any wiggle room to go back to, our employees and give them the allowances that I think that they deserve. So I appreciate all your hard work and your effort in bringing this forward to us. It was very clear and concise, and we do better with more information, I feel. So I thank you.
Welcome.
Yes.
Just a quick comment, and I was looking at the numbers, you're looking like $538,000 to get, $538 million to get out of PERS, which sounds like damaging, but from what I understand, it was gonna cost Stockton over $1.5 billion to get out, so if you look at it that way, we're not so bad.
And there actually was a time when our percentage that we paid into PERS was 0. I'm sure that's long forgotten, but there was that time, so,
I didn't think about that.
it depends on how you look at that. We should have maybe had foresight then to think, 0, that's a little low, we should maybe set some aside for those later years, but, it's rough when you're a city, you try to manage year to year, so, PERS is kind of in the doghouse sometimes, but really, over the years, I think they've been more than fair with how they've tried to manage the program, so.
Any other questions? I'm going to open this to the public. If you have any comments, if you have questions, I'll just take them down and we'll try and see if we can answer them at the end. If there's anyone that wishes to speak, please come up and state your name. Public.
Troy Mangrum, Turlock citizen. And when we had our last audit presented, showed a negative, a deficit balance in the engineering budget or engineering fund. So when I look at, I think it feels better to talk about the general fund at 10 million, but it really should cover that engineering fund. And our prior city manager said that it was going to be addressed. It was built up over many years, so I'm assuming we were going to take care of it over a few years. I don't know if that's what we're referring to when we say unfunded liabilities, but I'm curious as to what happened to the engineering fund for 2019. Did we also incur another loss, or did we actually, were we able to balance that and then cover some of that, to start whittling that liability down?
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Mr. Red? Mr. Treeweiler? Okay, go ahead.
I had just a quick question on the sales tax portion of the presentation. When you were talking about the sales tax figures that we're earning, that also includes, I'm assuming, online sales that are done within within the city of Turlock's boundaries. Is that correct? In other words, if you buy something on Amazon, they're collecting sales tax from us. Now, we are recouping that sales tax from Amazon or any other online seller at some date or time. Thank you. That's my question.
Thank you. Tim?
I'm sure this is an unfair question to pose to our public safety heads, but as Mr. Cook said, we were able to lessen the impact of our budget deficit based on the spending. So my question is to our public safety heads, are we going to be able to maintain the service levels with these same cuts, or even going deeper to close that hole?
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Bridegroom, first time up. Keep it holding up.
I'm getting a reputation. Okay, so I have a question about the sales tax. The progression of increase in the sales tax income, if I remember right from the slide, is kind of leveled out. Do you have any understanding of perhaps why that has happened? And I'm also asking that because if we're considering a sales tax increase, and we're thinking we're going to get X number of dollars, maybe we might not be getting as much. So any insight into that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes.
I just wanted maybe a little bit of clarification. I know that we've been focusing a lot on the public safety aspect of the budget and CalPERS, and I know that we, every time there's a budget crisis, we seem to cut back on our public safety aspect first, and we hear from it very, that seems to be the issue with some of the unions to settling up too. But I know that in our good years, we created positions that we wanted Turlock to have, but they were in what we thought were our good years. What is a realistic, are we cutting back? I mean, I hate to be that guy, but if I was looking at a budget and thinking about between public services and a head of a department that's making $200,000 a year plus CalPERS or plus all the other stuff that comes with it, and we as a city just can't afford it, I would hope that we would keep public safety first and cut in our other areas that are benefits that you would have in a good budget year. So I just hope that when we're looking at the budget, and I know that everyone it's a serious issue, so I hate to say let's fire people. I'm just saying there are positions that might be unnecessary in these hard times that we should look at leaning out first before we cut our public safety factors. So I think citizens would respect that. I fear that we kind of use them as a leverage tool and say, hey, citizens, if you want the public safety that you guys deserve and that you're used to having, you have to do this. You have to pay a higher sales tax. You have to do that. And I think we come to a realization that there's, we're going to probably have to pay to get ourselves out of the situation we're in, but we want to make sure that the changes are made in the right places before we get leveraged, with our public safety. So,
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Puffer, you're really close. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Bring it back for any final comments regarding this?
Question. Do I answer those questions or
Oh,
address
I'm
the
sorry.
questions?
Yeah, that would be helpful,
Okay.
right? Right. So,
I mean, I can try. Some of them I can't
okay,
answer.
we want to
some
start
of
with the
them- Okay.
engineering fund and the reserve.
Yeah, the engineering fund is being addressed, and Nadine, correct me if I'm wrong, in the 2020 budget or also in the 2019? Yeah, in the 2020 budget, we've already addressed some transfers to slowly whittle away at that deficit. The 2019, specifically the engineering fund, I'm not prepared to give you an update of that. At this point, I would say it's probably similar to what prior years have been, but we will have that information when we bring the audit to you in the next couple of months. Couple of questions related to sales tax. One was how are online sales affecting us? And the second was the reasons for the sales tax decline. Both of those are complicated. I don't know that I can just answer them straight up. There's legislation at play that's going to dictate how online sales are going to be allocated. Those changes will take time to implement. So for now, we have seen a decrease due to online consumerism. So until all of that gets ironed out, we're just anticipating still decreases in that area.
Can I just dovetail into that? So just to make it clear, because of the deal that was cut with the governor and Amazon and so on, so sales tax is collected by online retailers. It goes to the point of sale. So for instance, it's the distribution, wherever the distribution center is in. So as an example, if you buy something from Restoration Hardware, depending on if it comes to the Patterson facility or if it comes from the Tracy facility, those locations are the ones that get the sales tax. The sales tax doesn't come to Turlock, as an example.
Okay, so that answers the two sales tax related questions. Then there was a question about maintaining levels of service in public safety, and I'll let them address that if they would like. But just before I do that, I do want to point out that when you're dealing with a general fund of 44 million, the portion that is police and fire is 32 million. So unfortunately, anytime you're discussing savings, it relates to those programs. And that's just the nature of them being the largest part of the general fund in expenditures. So it's not that they are looked at specifically, let's save there, it's just that there's very little else to work with because they're such a large percentage of the general fund.
Chief?
So I believe the question was, given looking towards next year's budget, if the dollar amount is the same, would we be able to maintain the current level of service? And we're very premature in the budget process right now, but obviously I think our personnel costs are going to go up, as was stated, step increases, whatnot. So if given the exact same number of dollars from last year to this year, then, I mean, the answer would be no. We wouldn't be able to maintain the exact level of service that we do this year, which is unfortunately already diminished.
Chief Damerfar?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and citizens. Regarding the police department, our levels of services were cut as of March of 2019. We stopped all of our outreach programs. We stopped all of the overtime programs that we were utilizing for our staff to do the extra patrols, probations, et cetera. That was all shut down. And frankly, we were killing our staff. And I'm using the word killing rather frankly. We had staff going out on injuries, illnesses, and so forth. We were pushing our overtime budget to almost $750,000. And we were paying for that because we've continuously in law enforcement, whether it's Turlock or nationwide, it's difficult to hire officers in today's day and age. So we have salary savings, benefit savings, et cetera, that we were throwing at it. So since March of 2019, we've shut it all off. For this fiscal year budget, we're not going to be increasing the budget whatsoever. However, part of our cuts were to hold positions open. One position for almost 7 months, another position for 4 months. So that's about $125,000 that has to come back in the budget or we lay off more. So that's where we're at. You're not getting any extra services. You've got quite a bit less. We're not responding to calls an hour before the officer's shift ends to avoid overtime. Obviously, if it's a life or death call, we are going. And it's tough for us because in law enforcement, our whole thing is we want to be able to help, period. And it's a tough pill to swallow, but frankly, services come at a cost. What are we willing to pay for the service that we get? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Thank you, Tina, so much for your presentation and for the work of all of the finance staff working to put this together, and to all of our department heads who really stuck with us throughout this budget process. I wanted to echo some of the city manager's comments saying that although it looks like everyone did what we wanted, we should be saying, yay, we got our numbers to where we feel more comfortable with them. The level of service that we are giving our city is still not something that I am comfortable saying is a Turlock standard. We consciously lowered the standard of our city by charging our staff to present a zero deficit spending budget. As a council, we wanted to prioritize fiscal responsibility, and we wanted to stop paying for ongoing costs with our savings. The question now becomes, is this the Turlock standard? Or is the community going to be willing to agree that we deserve more?
Anyone else? Okay, we move on to council items for future consideration. Anyone? Yes. You had something?
No.
Okay. Did you? Anybody? Anybody?
There is one item related to something that came up at I think at the previous council meeting where we were talking about the testing facilities for cannabis grows and where it would and would not be allowed. I think that that's something that I would like to see brought forward to make a policy recommendation on. I think that type of industry itself, its proximity to residential and the specific use case we're talking about is something that would benefit from some conversation.
So I think kind of looking at the schedule, if we want to have some, because it would have to go through the planning commission process, I probably would just bring something for direction so that I know what y'all want me to bring back. So probably not the next meeting, but the meeting after that, I think we can come back with some different options to give direction, knowing that it would then have to go through planning commission and back to you. Sure.
Anybody else? I would like to ask Mr. Cook to do a salary survey and job descriptions for all the unfilled executive positions. While we don't have a lot of people filling the seat as a permanent, now seems the time that we look and see if the salaries are appropriate, or if we can pull them back a little bit and figure out where we're at with top management versus our actual employees in between. So if you could work on that, please. Council member questions, comments, and announcements? Anybody?
Comment. I just wanted to thank everybody. I've had a tough couple of weeks with my little guy. Went in for emergency appendectomy surgery on my birthday. So that was, but I have to say that Emmanuel Medical Center was top notch, and I probably haven't said that in a long time. So they were wonderful. Their staff was wonderful. The environment was clean, and I'm really happy to see that turnaround, because I know they've worked very hard on making sure that our community hospital stays prompt and up to date, and willingness to help. On another note, there was some things that I saw sitting in the waiting room that I think the city could get involved with and help mitigate, and I'll be bringing those forward so we can work on some things. But I just want to say thank you, everybody, for the happy birthday wishes, and my 7-year-old is doing better at home. Trying to keep a 7-year-old not to be going outside and running around is another challenge. So pray for me in that aspect, but I just wanted to thank everyone.
Just got to get him a Game Boy. One of the things that I would like to see, I think that months ago we talked about the importance of the public communication about some of these financial situations and the efforts that we're going through in City Hall to both collect information from the public, how we're digesting it, how it's being received in reports. whether from a reporting perspective and from press releases, and actually whether it's changes to our website or whatever, anything that's interacting with the public. I feel like there's still a lot to be desired for how we're messaging what's going on back here.
Anybody else? State of City will be on the 20th of February at 10 a.m. at Snyder Hall at CSUS. So first time there. Closed session, Mr. White.
Yes, Mayor, Public Employee Appointment, California Government Code 54957B1, Title City Manager.
Okay. Thank you all for coming. Are you a public member now, Mr. Cook?
Michael, you have public comments for us?
All right, report out of closed session, Mr. White.
Mayor, as it relates, in council, as it relates to 13A, direction was given to council, but there was no reportable action taken.
The council is in you, council?
Yes.
Direction was given to council from council?
Direction was given to city attorney, sorry, our staff, sorry, but there's no reportable action. Thank you.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Close.
Let me shut this down. You take the zip drive out first or leave it in there?
No, I took it out. That's just the